Hi, Yarn Bestie. It's Gea here. Welcome to Skein and Tell, the podcast that unravels it all. That's a mouthful of unravels it all. But for the very first time ever, today we are diving into the most magical aspect of the fiber world, which is the journey of yarn from its humble beginnings to the soft, squishy skeins that we find on our shelves. So have you ever wondered what it takes to turn a fluffy little sheep into actual yarn? Well, today we are unraveling the entire process, so get comfy, grab a cup of tea or coffee, and let's get started. So today we actually have a really, really special guest with us, and that is Kat. Kat has been with Hobbii since the beginning of time, and she is the mastermind behind many of the yarns that we love so much today. So without further ado, let's give it up to Kat.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a joy to be here and be able to talk about yarn, which you love so much.
Are you a little nervous, though?
A tiny little bit. This is my first time that I'm in a podcast, so yes, a little bit.
Yeah, but I think it's just the first 5 minutes, and so we really get into it, you know. And I think after that, it's gonna be. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
It's gonna be fun.
So we're just gonna go on a rampage about yarn.
We're good at doing that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so tell us a little bit about. I think you're just your journey, Kat, because you have been with us for how long now?
6.5 years.
6.5 years.
Yeah, and I come from the IT industry to start with, but that was a bit too corporate and boring. And now I'm in a yarn company, which is a lot more fun. We have to do with our very favorite product, the yarn. And yeah, I started here 6.5 years ago, and I'm the one making the color cards and finding out which yarns we need. I don't do that all by myself. Of course, we have a team, and we take decisions in community. But I'll also.
But you are the mastermind.
Well, a little bit.
Come on, you don't have to. Let's not. What do you call it? We're not bragging here, no. But let's also not, undermine, the work we do, because I think that you are doing most of the decision based. When it comes to colors, when it comes to what kind of fibers come out and so forth. So
I come at least with all the suggestions of what I think we should have and we should get.
Wonderful. Now that we basically established that you do have the best job in the world, I'm sure that a lot of people are like, I hate her. I want to be her.
But I feel like that. I really feel lucky to have the best job in the world.
But now that we've established that is a fact, let's take a step-by-step look into how yarn is actually made, from sheep to skein, right? Yes. So let's start off by maybe talking about the types of wool that come from different sheep, right? From different sheep breeds.
Yes. Well, yarn is not just yarn, and wool is not just wool. So there's a lot of different sheep breeds that yarn can come from. The most well-known one, I suppose, is merino. And merino is also the most luxurious one, you could say. If you're very sensitive to yarn on the skin, if you knit for babies, for example, then merino is always the good choice to go with, because it's so very soft. Compared to merino, everything else will seem scratchy, but it very much depends on what kind of yarn you have, on how you proceed further. Sometimes you take extra steps, sometimes you take a fewer, but
Okay. So let's actually, now that you've basically kind of gave us a little sum up of the most important yarn of all, which is merino, why don't you actually sum up the main sheep breed?
It's a lot of different sheep. Usually when you buy a wool yarn, then merino is often pure. Then you have 100% merino yarn. But if you buy yarn that is unspecified, where it doesn't say what breed it is on the label or on the cover, then it's usually a mix of all kinds of breeds.
Okay, actually that's quite interesting, because I never considered that.
Okay.
So unless it says on the label, for instance, like Highland wool, then you know it's wool from the Highlands.
Exactly.
Or merino wool, then you know it's wool from...
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's actually a really
But usually the wool is just collected from different farms, from different breeds, put together, and then they measure what the average is of the yarn, like the average softness. We'll get into that later, I suppose. But so usually it needs to say the sheep breed on the label if you're being very specific. Otherwise, it's a mix of all kinds of different breeds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the breeds then.
Yes.
Let's talk one by one. Let's start with merino because that is apparently the most famous one.
Yeah, it is. And that is, of course, because it's so very soft. So when you look at wool, you establish the softness with microns. The higher the microns, the more rough a yarn is, and the lower the number, the softer a yarn is. And merino is usually really, really soft, and I think the highest is 24 microns. Merino yarn can be. If it's higher than that, it's not merino.
Okay.
And it's super, super soft. I got a little, when I visited a factory.
I remember. I know it.
There's a 15 micron bit of yarn that is washed in cotton in a jar. Exactly, a glass jar next to my table, and it's so soft. It's so soft that you could actually. This sounds weird, but you could actually make underwear out of it because it's very soft. Yeah. I just have this little yarn bit next to me that I caress once in a while because it's so lovely to touch.
And I actually have a fun fact, right? Because I did go a little bit and read about the microns. This is very nerdy, and I love it, and I'm just gonna go into it. But apparently, like you said, merino ranges between 15 and 24. If it's more than 24, then it's not true merino. No. But if it's more than 24, then it can be any kind of wool, right? Well, human hair is actually typically between 50 and 100.
And imagine how scratchy that would be. A sweater,
my
human
God,
hair would be.
But wasn't that like an actual thing that people were actually also joked. People joked about actually making yarn out of human hair, and that's how. I don't know if you remember, like a few years back for April's Fool's Day, the girls from Social Marketing actually made a post that we developed yarn made out of human hair, because we actually heard it. We were very
I also have colleagues that have dogs with very soft fur that are collecting the dog fur to then try and spin it.
I think that's so cute. Yeah. I actually think it's cute.
Yeah.
This is a very sad thing, but my cat passed away a few months ago, and I was absolutely devastated.
Oh, that's sad.
And I really wanted to take a little bit of his hair somehow and do something with it so that I can remember,
Have a nice little souvenir.
Yeah, just something. So we didn't do that, but we did. We cut. We did not we didn't dare to pluck it out, but we did cut 2 of his mustache, and we figured, we put it in a little small envelope and with his name on it, and we just kept it for a souvenir. The little whisker. Very cute. Yeah. But I do get it. I do get why people would do that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because if the hair is soft.
Yeah, it'd be exciting to see whether they get any yarn out of it. That would be pretty cool if they could do a little hat out of it or a little bonnet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cute. All right, so that's merino for you, babies. The most luxurious of all.
Yes.
Quite common. Okay, what is the second most common sheep breed or not especially common, but
Well, there's another breed called Corriedale.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I just read a little bit up because I know the fibers, but I didn't know the story of it. But it's actually, there was a Scotsman sailing to New Zealand.
That's a long journey.
Yes, back in 1800 something, with a lot of sheep on his ship, and then he crossed the Lincoln sheep, which is another breed, with the merino from New Zealand, and out of that came the Corriedale.
Ah,
would have guessed. So that became an official breed, and it's a pretty soft one. It's again nothing compares to merino. This is not as soft as merino wool. Here the micron starts at 25, goes up to around 32. So it can get pretty rough, but it's a really nice yarn for good sweaters.
So merino, Corriedale, I actually used to call them Corriedale. I thought my whole life that is pronounced Corriedale.
Well,
yes,
maybe you're right, and I'm mispronouncing it. So if anybody knows how to pronounce it correctly, let us know.
Yes. Write an email and let us know.
Is it Corriedale or Corriedale?
Corriedale or Corriedale? Next.
Well, it's the wool from Icelandic sheep, and knowing where Iceland is located in the world, this was the wool from that was used for fishermen that went out onto sea, and it's a very strong wool.
It's like a thick wool.
Exactly. And then it's thick and keeps the water out. It's perfect for outerwear that you have to wear when you go out on a boat trying to get your family's meal on the table. And then also...
that sounds very romantic, actually.
Well,
knitting a sweater for your handsome man about to go fishing to the sea.
Yeah. I'm wondering how romantic that actually was at the time. But the
Probably
picture is
not.
lovely. Yes.
I'm thinking full Outlander, like those hard times and
yeah.
Yeah, I know, but it's like I can't compare anything. Like, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I know what you mean.
It's like,
and I think
strong men. Okay, this is a podcast about yarn.
Direction here.
Podcast about yarn. Focus. Icelandic sheep.
Yeah,
but not Icelandic men.
This is going to be so much fun. I hope you're having as much fun out there as we are. Well, the sweaters, they could also be felted, and then it actually gets really wind tight.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, and this wool is very it's not soft, but it's very sturdy and very. Yeah. It's very good wool to knit an outdoor sweater with. What can I say?
Yeah, or a jacket.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, wait a second. Actually, first of all, when you look at a photo of an Icelandic sheep and compare it to merino, for instance, right, you can notice that the Icelandic sheep don't have a very, very dense wool. They actually have a pelt that is quite long.
Yes.
So it actually makes sense because that means that they have less hair, but the hair is thicker so that they actually keep them warmer, right?
Yeah.
So
the wool, of course, gets finer when it gets closer to the skin.
To the skin, exactly.
It's a bit like with chicken and so on. The finer feathers are on the inside, and the rougher wool is on the outside. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would imagine, like you said, like an Icelandic sweater, something to wear outside, a jacket maybe also for gardening. So I think that you can still work with Icelandic wool, even if you have some sort of sensitivity, because you're not going to wear it against your skin.
No.
So it's always the fourth layer that you have on top of.
Exactly.
All right. There is one more breed that we are also using. We mentioned it right at the beginning.
Wool from Shetland.
Yes.
It's similar to Icelandic wool. It's not as soft, but it's perfect for color work. For a bit like the Icelandic again, which is also good for color work, sweaters and so on. So it's good for being outdoors. You can do a lot of lace. It's also
lightweight.
Yes, exactly. It's good for lace knitting if you have it in very thin strands, for delicate designs, and And it comes from the Shetland Islands.
And now back to Scotland. Scottish
now we're in Scotland.
Now we are back in Scotland. You've actually been there, right? On a trip?
Not on the Shetland Islands, but in Scotland, yes, on the Isle of Skye. And
I was close.
You were close.
Kind of. I actually had to pull up a map to see where the Shetland Islands were, because I had no idea that they were so high up.
Yeah.
They're basically northern Scotland.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So, okay. What did you do there?
Well, we were on holiday, actually.
Yes, but what kind of a holiday? Because I know about that holiday and I'm really jealous.
No, well, we were on a holiday, and the only thing that I told my friends and my now husband was that I needed to go to a yarn shop that was at the very outskirts of the Isle of Skye, and it is about 10 years ago. And it was a lovely old lady at the age of around 70 who had the shop, and it was at the edge of a cliff. I feel that's at least how I remember it, and she only had plant-dyed yarn, and it was such a lovely little shop. And I remember the sun going down behind the shop, and it was just it was a bit like in a movie. It was very lovely. Would love to go there again one day. We should do a company trip.
I was gonna propose that. We should tell our CEO we have another idea for another episode. That would be
Team
fun.
trip.
It sounds so like I remember when you told me that story the first time. I remember that I was very jealous.
Yeah, it was a nice trip.
Very, very jealous. All right, but okay, so we have more yarn.
Yes.
To talk about. More sheep. Okay, so let's go. We had merino, we had Corriedale or Corriedale, depending.
We don't know.
Vote below. We had what else? What else do we have?
The Shetland wool.
Yes, Icelandic wool, Shetland wool. What else do we have? We have the Romney.
Yeah.
Romney.
That's original from Kent in the UK.
Okay.
Yes, and it's a long staple wool.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for spinning.
Yeah.
It is perfect for spinners who look to create something special and shiny. It has a nice sheen to it, but it's a rougher wool. It's nothing super soft. So people with that are sensitive to scratchy wool wouldn't go with this either. But it's lovely to knit with, and a very, very good wool.
So technically speaking, we can actually categorize all of these 5 types of sheep into 2 groups.
Yeah.
Not scratchy, merino,
Exactly.
scratchy, the rest.
Exactly, that's basically it.
Okay. Okay, but now that we kind of understand, the what kind of sheep produces what kind of wool, let's actually talk about haircutting. Haircutting. Shearing the sheep. That's going to be a fun one.
Yes. I live close to a farm where they also have some sheep, and every year I ask them when they do the shearing, because it's such a fun thing to witness. So I go by with my kids, and then we do a picnic there and look at the people doing the hard work. It's very hard work, back-breaking work. Yes, because they have to take the sheep and then they basically lay them on their back, and then they very carefully take their. Usually it's an electric machine. They do it with
because they don't do it with the scissors with the shears anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like an electrical, a bit like if you have to share your husband's head entirely. That's when you that's the same type but just bigger for sheep.
Yeah.
And it looks like they have to bend over, and it's a very hard job.
The bending over, I cannot. My lower back is already feeling it.
Exactly. And it's always very strong people doing it. Yeah.
But did you know that actually the world record for the fastest shearing is about less than 40 seconds
and that is
on a single sheep? Do you imagine that? That's like done.
Yeah, and that's just crazy to think. Not even 40 seconds.
So fast.
Yeah, and the fleeces they are so big and they can weigh
they're very
so
heavy.
much.
Yeah, exactly. Up to like 13 kilos, which is 30 pounds.
Yeah, and that's insane. Insane to think that a sheep runs around with that much wool on them.
Imagine the muscles on the sheep, though.
Yeah.
Strong sheep.
Yeah.
All right. So, like you said, sheep are typically sheared once a year. Usually in spring, right?
Yes, around May.
May.
At least here in Denmark, I don't know whether it's different. That would actually be interesting to know whether it's different in other countries because of the climate. If it's a warmer climate.
For sure.
I don't know.
But I'm guessing that the time to shear them would be before the weather gets too hot for them to actually walk around in a big coat.
And also not too cold, because once they are shorn.
Yeah.
Is it shorn?
Yeah. Shorn.
Then they look like they're freezing, because all of a sudden the entire wool coat is gone.
Yeah,
you always feel like
imagine you do it sometimes in April or something, right at the beginning of spring, and then you do it too early, and then another wave of cold comes.
Yeah, we get freezing temperatures until the middle of May here in Denmark. So it's
I'm actually quite impressed that right now it's March. By the way, it's March 17th right now. I'm actually oh my god, it's Albert's 14th month birthday.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Sorry, I just get distracted. I'm like full-blown baby mode. Like in my head, there's 2 boxes at the moment. No, actually 3 boxes. One of them is yarn, of course. The other one is my baby. And the other one is does my baby have food, have diapers, have
Yes,
all of the stuff,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay, but it's March now, and it's kind of crazy to think that it's actually still mid-March, almost mid towards end March, and it's still freezing temperatures. So you have one day when you have very high temperatures, and then you have minus again.
When I had to hush the kids off to school this morning, it was -5 degrees Celsius.
That's insane.
That's Celsius, not Fahrenheit.
Insane.
I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but it's really cold.
Like we said, the fleece they can get up to 30 pounds, right? Which is about 13 kilos, but it's usually between 2 and 30 pounds.
Yes.
So after shearing,
then the fleece is skirted. That means it's basically cleaned.
Yeah.
There's usually a lot of like natural stuff in the fleece, like leaves and dirt and so on, and that has to be picked out. So it doesn't come with it into the
So it's like a
machine.
fancy word from removing the dirt, basically.
Yes.
It's skirted. I would like to go have my wool skirted, please.
Exactly.
All right. But they don't, I guess that whoever does that job, which I also think is quite meticulous, right?
Yes.
The skirting of the sheep.
I'm actually not sure how they do it for the big factories, whether there's a machine that can do it, but I know that people who only have a couple of sheep, they do it by hand.
Yeah, I want to hear that story.
Yes.
That's the romantic story I need.
Go with the romantic part. Yes, it's so we pick out you pick out the dirt and the leaves, the natural debris, whatever they collect during winter that gets stuck into the outer fleece that needs to come out first. And then after that, the wool has to be washed, and that's called scouring. So that's when the stuff that can't be picked out, it still gets cleaned and so on. Also, the wool has a lot of lanolin. Lanolin is like the natural grease that the sheep have in their fleece that keeps the water out, so they don't ever get completely wet and soaked.
Which is what actually makes people that are wool allergic. Yeah, exactly. They're not allergic to the wool itself, to the hair itself.
No,
They're actually allergic to the lanolin.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because you can either be allergic to the lanolin or the lanolin can be very good for you.
Exactly.
Extremely good for you.
Yes.
At least I'm in the lucky and you are too.
Yes.
I know. I remember a few years ago when you had like cracked knuckles because of bicycling, and one day you came to the office and your knuckles just looked all greased up, and I was like, well, what's going on, Kat? And she's like, I just have lanolin on my knuckles.
Whatever works in this
exactly
in this climate here.
I use it so much now.
Yeah.
Once again, talking about my baby. No, it's the last time, I promise. But I use it so much for him. Like if he has like any kind of crack or anything like that, like or cheeks that are dry because of just a little touch of the lanolin, and it fixes everything.
Young mothers also put it on
the nipples. I know.
Oh my God.
It's amazing. When I started breastfeeding, actually, I used that because I know that you don't actually have to wash it off. You can just like, plop the baby back.
Yes, exactly.
You can just connect the baby back to the nipple without having to actually wash. So it's really, really good to... Yeah, it's an incredible ingredient, I would say.
Yes, and that is also that is washed out during the scouring process, at least to a certain degree. It depends on whether your customers are happy about lanolin, because it's actually, you can feel when you knit with wool where there's still a little bit of lanolin in it, you can feel it on your hands. Your hands get all greasy, and some people like it. If you have really dry hands like I do, I really don't mind it. But there's also people that would hate knitting with wool with lanolin residues. So usually, if it's a big commercial production, then you would entirely wash it out. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Did you know that unwashed wool can actually be made out of 50% just grease, so just lanolin and dirt in weight. So it's a lot of gunk to scrub off of a one single fleece.
Yeah.
So what happens after you wash the fleece that you've
then you have to card the wool. Carders they look a bit like a brush, not very high but very broad brush. You have two of them, and then like if you do it by hand, you take a little bit of the raw fleece, the raw wool, put it in between just a little bit, and then you pull them in opposite directions, which means the fibers will be put put parallel to each other.
Yeah.
Just like when you comb your hair, they get parallel to each other, and it's the same process with carding them. And then in the factories, there are big machines that basically do the same. They're also carding the yarn, and it looks fantastic. It looks all soft and cloudy, and
would love to see that.
Yes, it's
actually, I think that's one of my really, really big dreams, to just go to a big wool factory to see it, because I would love to see how it's made.
Yeah, we'd love to take you. You should come with your camera at one
yes,
point, and
please.
then
even if it's just like
so
yes, I would love to.
Factories are the birthplace of the yarn that we are working with, so it's really fantastic to see. Yes. So and then it gets all lofty and warm when the fibers lay together, and then it depends whether you're working with a worsted spun yarn or a woolen spun yarn, and there's a little difference. Like with woolen spun yarns are usually for shorter fibers, because like the yarn, of course, has, just like with our hair, there's some parts of our hair that never grows past a certain length, and then there's other parts on our head where the hair just grows very
super
long.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a bit the same here. So here you take the shorter fibers if you do a woolen spun yarn, where the end result will be thicker and a bit more heavy. It's good for like blankets and hats and all these types of things.
Yeah.
If you want a worsted spun yarn, then you will take the longer fibers, and you can produce very fine yarns with that afterwards. It's finer, it's a bit softer. It's you use that for like baby clothes or underwear. You can really make very, very thin yarns as well. Also for like the industry, not just for hand knitting yarns, but also for machine knitting yarns, where you produce coats and underwear and
because actually that's something we do have to also mention. Like, of course, we're talking about how our yarn is made.
Yes.
The yarn that we use as crafters, but when we think about the process that goes through it, the yarn doesn't just end up in our shelves. It also ends up in in your retail store where you shop for your t-shirts or underwear for that matter, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So woolen yarn, great for warmth because it's very lofty, right?
Yeah.
And worsted yarn, more durable, has a sleeker finish, more stitch definition. Right. So
it looks very nice.
Yeah.
But it's not supposed to be confused with the yarn weight, because there's also a yarn weight called worsted.
Yeah.
But that's not the same. That's two different things.
Exactly.
So they don't have anything to do with each other.
No, exactly. All right. We went through sheep breeds, process of shearing, process of cleaning the fleece that we sheared. Mm-hmm. And now what?
So we had the carding.
Yeah, also carding.
If you want to do a worsted yarn, then you will also comb the yarn. So that's yet another process of putting the fibers parallel to each other. Like, you're basically making it even finer. That's what you do when you get a worsted spun yarn.
Okay.
Yes. So the worsted spun is basically just I think there are 3 extra steps in there, and one of them is combing them, and the other 2 I always forget. Sorry.
Okay. So it's easier to make basically woolen yarn than it is to make worsted yarn, and it actually makes sense. Because if you want more stitch definition and you want a more refined yarn, it makes sense that there's more steps.
Yes.
So, okay. Next step.
That is the spinning of the fibers.
Yes.
Of course.
The most important.
Yeah, that's where the yarn actually gets to look like yarn.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, to get these single fibers that we've just all put parallel to each other that give like this fluffy halo of wool, to get that into a yarn, we have to spin it. And you can do that in various ways. I only tried with a drop spindle, I think it's called. It's like the handheld thing that I'm not good at it. I've tried it once. I don't have the patience for it.
I remember when you were actually trying to make your own yarn.
Yes.
But you did end up making a little hank.
Yeah, a tiny little bit, like 10 meters or so. And then I was like, I have to stop this. This is not for me. I'd rather knit than spin.
Really?
I suppose it's like with everything else. If you get into it, then it would get easier and then it would be more fun. But I have 3 kids. I don't have time for that now. So that maybe in 10 years, then it...
Oh, please call me when you do, because I would love to give it a shot.
Yeah.
I see it. I follow like some TikTok accounts, and I see they do the whole thing. And it's so much cool, and they also have like these actually big machines. Like it's not like a tiny little itty bitty little tiny spindler. It's like these. Yeah, kind of like chunky.
Exactly.
And you're like, wow, it's amazing. And it also reminds me. I mean, that also makes you think a little bit about the old times, when they actually did this by hand.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's probably as meditative or meditative.
Oh my God.
Meditative. Meditational.
Yeah, that.
As actually crafting, as knitting, and because I could imagine like that you get kind of like in the zone.
Yeah. Don't we have a spindle here?
We do. We should totally like try it out.
We should absolutely.
We should just bring it out and try it out.
Yes. That would be fun. Everybody would just be there like, what are you doing?
Yes. We're like, we don't know. We don't know what we're doing. We're trying things. Yeah. Okay. The magic. So tell us a little bit about, basically what it takes to spin the yarn, to make that continuous little yarn.
Well, you basically twist the yarn, and it depends. You can give it a low twist. If you only have like one strand and give it a low twist, then it will be, I suppose, what you call a roving yarn. It's like our wool, big wool and wool print. They are just spun fibers. They're just twisted slightly. They're not really
or
spun,
winter
but
glow
twisted
as well.
For example, yes, exactly.
I think that's actually called like when you give it a low twist, isn't it called like a woolen yarn, as opposed to?
I'm not sure.
Worsted.
Actually, I'm not sure.
We live and we learn.
We don't know everything. But the low twist, it makes the yarn really soft and really warm. It can keep
because it traps the air. Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's really nice. It's really good for shawls and scarves, for thick, warm sweaters. So if you need something that really keeps you warm, then those are ideal for that. Also for blankets and everything.
And I would also imagine that the texture, once you crochet or knit with it, it's very squishy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the air that's trapped in. Okay.
And then if you give the yarn a higher twist, then it will get stronger. It will pill less. It's really it's good for something that needs to be used all the time, every day, an everyday sweater. I suppose that's it. And then, of course, you have several strands. Yarns. Some yarns are made of one strand of yarn. Many yarns are made of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strands of yarn, and it looks very different. If you try and pay attention to the yarn that you have at home, then it's very interesting to see how many strands it's actually made of. It gives a different look. It gives it a different texture. The stitch definition will look different. My favorite is a 2-ply yarn. They just I find the stitch definition so nice. It's like. What is it called? Kind of wavy and very soft and very it just looks appealing to the eye, I find. But that's a personal preference. Yeah.
Nowadays, I think that the huge advantage of having these machineries or big machines doing it for you is that we can actually get more yarn out there, right?
Yes.
Thank God. But did you know that the oldest spinning wheel has been found in India? Yeah. And it dates back from about 580.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is super, super, super crazy. That it actually, lasted so long, basically. So tell us, do you have any stories with spinning your own yarn, Kat?
I have so many yarn stories.
Oh my goodness!
But this I took part in a course where we had to collect over a certain amount of time our yarn snippets. The little things that you cut off at the end when you're done with the project.
Like very tiny scraps.
Exactly,
tiny scraps.
Yes, you couldn't use blow yarns because they have a different structure, but all the regular multi-plied yarns, those work well.
So everything that's not a chain net, basically.
Exactly. Exactly, yes.
Okay.
So we had to collect those. And then I had my carders at home and the drop spindle. And then
Where
we
did you
had
buy your carders from?
I think it was a local Facebook group of people that are interested in yarn and spinning and so on.
I need to find some.
Because if you buy them from new, they are pretty expensive. But if you just want to try them out, then it's better to get them secondhand.
Okay.
Yeah, so I had collected all these fibers, and it can be a mix of all kinds of alpaca, wool, cotton, whatever. And it was just about repurposing your yarn scraps.
Mm-hmm.
So we put those on the carders and brushed them properly several times because you needed to open the fibers again and open the spinning and the plies. And then after that, try to spin it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of fun to see. I mean, again, I'm not good at it, but I haven't practiced a lot either. And but that was a pretty cool way to use up scraps, even though, the tiny snippets that you have. That was really nice to try out. And I think if I had more time, I would love to do that a little more.
I think but that's what I was thinking. That sounds really, really cool.
Yeah.
Like doing that, making your own yarn, and also considering that if you like knit a lot or crochet a lot for yourself, then obviously the color choices are the ones you like. So you actually end up making a yarn out of all of your favorite colors. Yeah. And that I'm like, yeah, I would love to do that. I would also love to do that. We've just spun our yarn. Now it's time to ply it, right?
Yes, exactly. And then again, I think I actually jumped a little ahead early on already. So you can have a single ply yarn. That's just a one strand that is plied, that is twisted a little, and that will be, it can be prone to breaking. It can also be prone to being a little, thicker and thinner in places.
Yeah.
That's just the type of yarn. That's just a part of it, but it's also part of the charm.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can have several plies. So like 2, 3, 4. I think we
Up
have
to
6. Yeah.
16 or 8?
We have. I think. I mean, you can do whatever you want to, I suppose. But I think we have an 8 ply. That's the most. Our cotton, French cotton 8 or rainbow cotton 8.
I think it is.
Plies.
I think it is.
And it's it's they get really strong, and like the more plies you have, the less shadow the single plies are showing, and the softer the surface looks, because it's
so more stitch definition as
exactly.
Tell us what the next step is.
Well, the next is giving the yarn color, if that is what we want. You can always go with the natural fibers, but the dyeing would be the next step.
There's different techniques for dyeing, right?
This is beautiful to see, because when you're in the factories, you see the big tops. That means the raw fiber, where it's not spun yet and it's not plied yet. So it's just the woolen fiber or cotton fiber or acrylic fiber, whatever it is. And that can be dyed as such. And then afterwards blended together to get into other colors and so on. But you can also do the skein dyeing, where the yarn is already spun and plied and ready to go and in its final thickness, and then can be dyed in hanks.
Okay.
You can also do the hand dyeing, which is getting more and more popular.
Yeah.
Yes,
I agree. That's really a beautiful one, because it creates that kind of
it's so
artisanal, one of a kind.
Exactly.
Yes, that we love so much. And I think that actually the one that we have is it unicorn?
It's unicorn
that we have. I know that's one of your babies as well.
Well, yeah,
kind of.
And we have something new coming up, some new colorways coming up, so people can look forward to that.
Are you serious?
Oh, you didn't know yet?
I did. Oh my god, I didn't know that.
Oh, but it's coming soon, and we're so excited to see how people will like them.
I'm excited. I remember when unicorn came, and I was just. It was the most beautiful yarn I've ever seen that we've sold at that moment, right? Apart from alpaca silk, which is just the best yarn ever. That's my favorite. All right, but actually, speaking of hand dyeing can be done also with natural
plant fibers.
Exactly. Can also be done with artificial.
Exactly. That's all the acid dyes.
Did you actually know that the synthetic dyes were actually invented a very long time ago?
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
1856.
Holy. Okay. Yeah, that's
it's insane because I think in my head I'm like, okay, artificial dyes for yarn, yes, probably invented in the 50s when acrylic was invented.
Exactly.
No. It was like the 1850 50s. It's like it's a long time ago, actually, when you think about it. Over 150 years, basically. So until then, it was just natural dyes from plants, from insects as well.
Yes.
And minerals for thousands of years. I have such funny stories, actually, about insect dyeing. Do you know about the imperial purple?
Is that the cochinelle bug? No.
No. I mean, it's the snail, the sea snail.
Wow. Okay, no, I didn't know that.
Okay, so there's this sea snail where they would extract basically the dye from, right? And you needed 10,000 sea snails for 1 gram. And that's why it was called imperial purple, because it was only used by, super high society. Yeah. So,
but imagine the person who found out, like, how do you find out that you have to use a sea snail?
Yeah, that's also super creepy. Like that you have to like dry the snail, and like how did they even
discover
it's insane. Yeah. It's insane. Anyway, back to our episode of from skein to yarn, from sheep to skein. Okay, I'm getting there. So we actually do have a fun episode coming up that we have to record about hand dyeing.
That would be cool.
With you.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that one because it has basically everything to do with, dyeing at home, basically. Mm-hmm. So, kitchen alchemy going on over there. So it's going to be really, really fun. I really hope that you guys are going to give that one a listen to because it's going to be a really fun episode. So then we're done after dyeing? Then that's it?
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no.
Well, in theory, you're done in terms of the preparation of the yarn, but it still needs to be balled up. Needs to be,
yes. Okay.
Because yarn can come in different shapes. It can come in a hank. That's the artisanal yarns that usually come in hanks, the more luxurious types. It can come in I would call
They really like to make it difficult on you,
Yes, but it's also part of the process, right?
It is.
To unwinding the hank and making your little ball, and even if you have a yarn winder, then you get this tiny little cute cake.
Yeah, true. True, and it's also a matter of like how you prefer to wind it up,
Exactly, yeah. And it's also like, I think it's a bit like with knitting. It's like the way is the goal, or the path is the goal of, you shouldn't be working for the end result, but you should also enjoy
the process.
Exactly, yes.
That's something one of our designers actually taught me like almost 6 years ago when I joined Hobbii. Because I really wanted to knit fast. I was like, how do you do it so fast? I don't understand how you can knit a sweater in a week, right? I really want to like learn to be faster and faster and faster. And she says, you know what? That's not about knitting fast. It's about enjoying every stitch that you do.
Exactly.
Just knit slow. That's better.
She's so wise.
60 years of working with yarn?
Yeah, probably.
Yes. So high-end yarns are obviously made into hanks because then you get the whole process. You get to like savor the yarn differently.
Yes, and also because you can see the colors differently. You can see more of the colors. Like if there are color changes, it's easier to see them.
Actually,
so you see the yarn all around.
Yeah. I didn't think actually about that.
That's nice.
But it does give you... Okay. And you can also do them in pole skeins. They can also be...
Yes, in pole skeins, the long ones. Mm-hmm. Yes, like our silly socks, they are coming in pole skeins.
Yeah.
You can do them in I call them the regular balls. I think they can also be called 3-point balls, something like that. Mm-hmm. And you can get them in donuts, like the kid silk is usually coming in donuts. Also, the more exclusive ones. So there's a lot of different type of skeins that it can be made into.
Why does the exclusive one come in donuts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not quite sure. I think it's one of those things that just has been established.
Maybe it's easier to unravel them and pull from the center or something.
Yeah, but it's just as easy from a regular ball.
That's true.
I don't know. It's just a matter of preference and presentation.
Did they actually spin the vicuña yarns also by machine?
It looked very, very machine spun, yes. But it's, you can't do a lot of it because there's so little vicuña.
Okay.
Is anybody, I don't know, our listeners, do they know about vicuña at all?
Probably not.
No.
So tell us a little bit about it. Like, give us a little, because I don't know if I've included it in an episode before this one or if it's going to be in an episode that's coming up next. But vicuña yarn.
Yeah. That's a fun.
You saw vicuña yarn at a fair that you've just recently visited. So tell us a little bit about vicuña, where it comes from, really quickly. Like, sum it up for us.
So vicuña is an animal that looks a little bit like an alpaca or a llama, just smaller, a lot smaller, and it comes from Peru as well.
And Bolivia and Ecuador.
Yes. And the wool is, there's nothing as soft out on the market as the vicuña wool.
Nothing?
Not even cashmere.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Not even cashmere. So it's super soft, but because the animals can't really be domesticized, like alpacas, you can't have them in a small field together and then go there and share them. The yarn is really, really expensive, both because it's so super soft and because there are so few animals, and it's hard to get to them.
Yeah, because they're technically wild animals.
Yes. Yeah.
So the ones who actually go, I'm like using little finger signs here. The ones that are actually going to shear them, it's like if you're lucky enough to know that they live around these parts of the highlands here, and like in this period they're roaming here with the little tippy toes.
It's a lot bigger effort to get the wool.
Okay. So if it's that exclusive and expensive, and tell me the price, because the price blew my mind.
So if we're selling a tiny 25-gram ball,
25 gram, that's very little. By the way.
That is what is that? That's like a kid silk skein. It's like 50 gram is a 1.7 ounce approximately. So half of that. It would cost $300 US.
$300 US for a little itty bitty tiny. You can't even make like a Sophie scarf out of it. You can't make it. You would need to.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yes,
it's insane. Yes. $600 scarf. Imagine that.
I've wished for it for my birthday many times and never got one.
Well, I'm surprised, Kat. Mind blowing. It was such a great little episode, actually. I'm really, really happy that you came, found the time to sit down with me and go over this. Basically, that's how yarn is made, from sheep to skein. Working with the softest merino wool or the really, really rough, rugged Icelandic fleece, the journey your yarn takes to get to you is actually a very beautiful one.
Yes.
Filled with history and skill and tradition. Yes. So basically, next time you actually do end up knitting, maybe you're knitting now, or maybe you're crocheting now, look at it, grab that little skein on the floor, grab and look at it, and think about everything that little skein has gone through to actually, get to where it is now. That's actually very beautiful. It's a very beautiful little journey to visualize, right? But thank you, Kat, for explaining this incredible process to us.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope that this brought a lot of light into people's knowledge. That's pretty much it for today. Keep stitching, Yarn Bestie, and remember, every stitch is a little piece of an amazing journey. So yeah,
thank you.
See you soon, Bestie. Love you. Bye.